Conrad, a lot of riders get asked when approaching jumps, when is the best time to scrub? When would you scrub, first of all, and how would you do it?
As the years go on, scrubbing is getting more and more common. Believe it or not, it's actually a big factor in racing now. It saves a lot of time to start off with. That's one reason why we do it. Instead of just jumping normally and going so high, we tend to scrub and keep it low to kind of save time in the races. If you're trying to make a pass and things, then you happen to try and scrub next to someone and try and keep it a little bit lower. How we do that is we're approaching the jump, and instead of going to the jump directly straight, going off like that and kind of keeping your body quite stiff, we tend to make a bit of a kind of turn up the takeoff. So we kind of carving our way up the takeoff, and then we're slightly leaning with our upper body. From there on, we start to turn the bike down just as we go over the takeoff. Obviously you need to be a bit cautious of how soon you do that because you don't want to catch the takeoff. We tend to turn the bike down, and then from there I always tend to look at the landing straight, and the bike almost kind of comes back naturally. That's how I've learned to do it, and that's how I've stuck with.
And what about whips? Obviously they look impressive, but when are you going to just throw a whip? Do you throw whips in a race for any particular reason?
The only time you would throw a whip is either you just got the win, or during the practice session and you're just enjoying yourself, you know, because during the race there's very few times where you throw a whip. It would be trying to avoid something in the air, but usually it's either scrubs or you just go straight, because it usually you don't get any speed by whipping. And it takes off a lot of energy at the same time, especially if you're trying to push.
But maybe also when it's windy, if the wind is blowing from the right, would you kind of almost whip into the wind?
If the wind is strong, then we always tend to turn into the wind just for that exact reason, because the wind can kind of take the bike away from underneath you, and then you're all off balance with the bike then. Thinking back at it now, we do tend to actually whip quite a lot in the races with the wind, and if the jump's going into a turn and things like that, we want to kind of angle the bike ready for the turn. So yeah, I suppose it happens more than you think in the races.
What about high-speed jumps? Sometimes you have to jump long, and so from that side, you know, when do you know to jump long?
On a racetrack like today, where we have big jumps, just to jump the jump itself is difficult, and there's some massive jumps. When I raced the last time, I had to push everything in just to carry the speed enough to jump the jump. And in that certain moment, I wouldn't try to scrub or whip or anything. I would just try to hit it completely straight. At other times, it could be a single jump, trying to avoid a bump by jumping. Usually, it would either be a scrub or when you try to reach something by jumping straight and get some distance.
All right. And finally, tyre choice is important. A track like this here in Turkey is hard pack underneath.
Naturally, on a hard pack track, we would go for the MX-33, because obviously when it's sandy, we would go for the scoop tire. But on the takeoffs where it's so slick and hard, we would automatically go for the MX-33, because otherwise you would slide too much when you take off, especially when you scrub, because if there's no traction, you would just slide away, and that could be very dangerous when jumping.
In the sand, for instance, you'll run a scoop tyre, maybe in the mud as well. How important is the tyre that you choose when it comes to getting traction when you land off a jump?
You're trying to really look at the finer things. It's the drive off the landings of the jumps. With the scoop tyre, especially in the sand, this maximises that. You get so much traction with it, and even out of the turns when you go into the deep berms, and the scoop tyre really digs in and drags you out of them deep berms. I always run a scoop tyre in the deep mud as well. It just really digs in and helps with that drive. And then later on in the day, if the track dries out, then we chuck a hard pack tyre on, and then yeah, finish the day with a hard pack tyre.